Speaking of anger, I'm turning more to despair, actually, here, Robert. The BBC, once again in the headlines. We all know the sorry, dismal and shocking tale of Huw Edwards now, and his appetite that he's now pleaded guilty for some shocking images, child pornography in some cases. Now, moving on from that, what the story is really developing into today is Tim Davie, Director General, says, well, look, we did know. We knew is under arrest. We knew the scale of the charges, if not the detail. We still paid him. We didn't take any steps to do anything about that. It was very complicated and he had a contract. You can hear all the stuff going on. But even BBC staff now are saying, hang on, you were getting reports that we thought his Huw Edwards' conduct was questionable. You're making redundancies even. At the time, you're continuing to pay someone who you knew was under arrest. Is this going to land, and should it land, on Tim Davie's desk? And will it bring in his tenure as Director General for poor judgment into question? And a consequence, he goes?
Well, let me just first of all say, Nick, people are worried about a licence fee money going to pay someone who's been accused of these awful crimes and he's now admitted guilt. So I understand the anger, and I'm not a fan of the licence fee. I think it should go. I think the BBC should be a subscription service rather than a tax on everyone, regardless of whether you use it. But I'm going to stick up here for Tim Davie because I believe in innocence until proven guilty. And I think the BBC did the right thing just because Huw Edwards had been arrested, albeit for a terrible crime. He wasn't guilty until proven guilty, and therefore he should receive his salary or whatever it was that he was receiving until he was proven guilty. Okay, I think Tim Davie did the right thing.
Let me put you a slightly more nuanced version of what could have happened. He was actually suspended on full pay. When the first allegations that raised by the Sun, which seems like, I think that was back in March last year, when he was named. At the point he was arrested, wouldn't there have been a case to say, well, you remain suspended and obviously you are innocent until proven guilty, or declare yourself guilty, as he did. But really, they could have suspended without pay, perhaps?
They could indeed have suspended without pay. The danger is of that, for me, Nick, is that then you get into a situation where people can throw out malicious accusations against famous people to ruin their career and to ruin their finances, quite frankly. And I don't think that's the right thing either. Obviously, now that Huw Edwards has admitted guilt, it's a whole different ballgame. But rewind a few months, and the BBC didn't know that he was going to admit guilt.
There's talk that they are actually sort of sitting on internal reports. I mean, I can't be certain of that, but it seems pretty clear that that's gaining some currency, shall we say. That people were an internal report that may very well point to the fact that, as I said, some staff were aware of that there was certain allegations and reports out there. That would be different, wouldn't it, if it emerges they've just sat on a report? That surely would cost him his job, wouldn't it?
Yeah, now that's a whole different area. That's really about whistleblowing. And the reports are that a number of younger members of staff were making complaints against Huw Edwards. These complaints were not taken seriously, so their whistleblowing actually had no impact. And we assume that's because Huw Edwards was such a big star. That, to me, is one that Davie does need to answer, the whole BBC whistleblowing process, and that one could indeed blow up in his face.
Well, we've got, Sean has said, Nick, finally, after all the mistakes and inaction of the BBC, we have now cancelled our TV licence payments in protest. Enough is enough. And I think if people can vote with their feet, which is not actually that easy to do in some circumstances, then, you know, feel free to do so. We'll be coming back with more from Robert Taylor, political commentator.